Hi, this is Bobby Burke for the Multi-Millionaire Mindset Podcast. I'm with Scott Mady today. Scott Mady is the president of Heritage Pension Advisors Incorporated. Heritage is a full-service third-party pension administration firm specializing in qualified plan design, legal documents, compliance, and tax reporting. Scott has over 32 years of experience in the field. On a personal note, Scott has been one of my best friends for over 36 years. We actually played college football together and have the scars still today from it. Welcome, Scott. Good having you on.
Great to be here, Bob.
I love it.
Thanks for having me.
Oh, well, thanks for doing this. So tell our audience about your experience, kind of your background in building and administering retirement plans.
So as you know, graduated Siena College in 1991 with a dual major in economics and finance. And I always wanted to get into investments and financial planning. And my first job was with Equitable Life. And at that time, Equitable Life had a fairly unique 401k plan. At that time, they had 5 investment options. They had a bond account, a guaranteed interest account, a balanced account, a large company stock account, and an aggressive account. And by today's standards, that seems pretty primitive. But back then, you have to remember 401ks were just getting going. You know, most companies didn't adopt 401k plans until the mid to late 80s. And before that, they were what we would call a group unallocated account, where the employer would invest the money for the employees. So having the ability for the employees to choose their own investments and release the employer from that fiduciary obligation was kind of a big thing at the time. So I gravitated towards the 401k market because we had a unique product. For a few years, I was referring business to a local third-party administrator here in New York. And what I found was there was a lot of issues regarding their service. You know, they weren't responding quickly. They delayed on processing things. So in 1994, decided to start my own third-party administration firm and really learned it the hard way, you know, staying up late nights into the morning, reading legislative manuals, reading compliance, taking ASPA courses, and really learning the technology. And at first I did it for my own existing clients, which wasn't very large. But over time, other agents started referring me business. Other investment advisors started referring their third-party administration business to me. Eventually, that went to accountants and even banks and wirehouses. So, you know, it took some time, but it was a long and arduous process. But I really kind of learned everything from the ground up.
I love it. Just a side note that our audience should know about. There are 2 people that got me into investment advising. You were one of them, and my uncle was the other. And I remember after we graduated, you calling one day and saying, "Hey, I think you'd be good at this." So
yeah,
thank you for the encouragement.
Excellent. Excellent.
What is it you enjoy most about our field?
Well, you know, the profession can be very financially rewarding.
Right.
And of course, everyone wants to be financially secure. Everyone wants to be financially successful. But I find the people that get into this business solely for that reason, that looking for the big commission or a quick buck, they usually don't last. The only way to be successful in retirement planning business is to have patience and build a loyal clientele. So the question is, how do you build a loyal clientele? And it really comes down to what I like most about this business. I like helping people.
Right.
I take real enjoyment in listening to people, what their goals are, and helping them reach those goals. So, you know, I think one of the things to be successful in this business, you have to be sincere about wanting to help people, because they recognize that and they'll stay loyal to you. I've got clients that have been with me since the early 1990s, which is over 30 years at this point. And if you think about all the things that occurred over those 30 years, you know, we had the dot-com bubble, we had the financial crisis in '08, we had the pandemic, we've had presidents impeached, we've gone through terrorist attacks and wars. I mean, there's a lot of things. And what I've really found is that clients want you to guide them through that turmoil. And that's what I enjoy the most, is kind of helping people. The second thing is, you know, I'm always learning. And I remember working when we were at Siena College at a bank, And at the bank, you had one task, and then you handed that task off to the next person, who handed it to the next person, and it was so monotonous. It was
Yeah.
so boring to me. With this business, we really wear a lot of different hats. If you think about what a third-party administrator does, we're part accountant because we do your tax filings, we help with audits, IRS and Department of Labor audits, we do 1099s, tax withholding. We do a lot of accounting work. We're part legal because
Right.
every plan requires legal documents to get it set up, and those documents are 200 pages long, and we have to know every aspect of that document to advise our clients on what's appropriate for them. And we develop those documents. We're part technology. Not all of our plans are on a heritage record keeping system, but we have a couple hundred plans on our own record keeping system. So employees that are in these 401k plans, they log in through the Heritage Pension website. They can make investment changes, check their statements, do some financial planning. We have to make sure that that technology is up to date. And then, of course, for the plans that we act as a financial advisor, there's a lot involved with that too. Doing plan reviews and meeting with employees and helping them. So there's always something challenging us when it comes to this business, and it keeps it fresh all the time. And I'll use the Secure Act 2.0 that came out December of 2022. There were 90 provisions in that act that pertain to retirement plans. Now, if you own a business with an HR department, that HR department's responsible for health insurance and disability and workman's comp and all these things. How are they supposed to keep on top of all of those 90 provisions that came out in the Secure 2.0 Act? It's almost impossible. So we become like an extension of the company's HR department for the pension plan.
Oh, that's awesome. An area you and I have worked on a lot together over the years are specifically cash balance retirement plans. So let's talk about that a little bit. What current opportunities do you see for business owners with utilizing cash balance retirement plans and also other types of retirement plans?
Sure. Yeah, cash balance plans are probably one of the hottest things in the retirement plan market today. Part of it's due to legislation. Part of it is due to the IRS blessings. Up until about 3 years ago, the IRS did not approve prototype documents for cash balance plans. They are now approving prototype cash balance plans. So that's kind of putting their blessing on it that they approve these plans. And there was always that question since they never approved the prototype. They've also had been some legislation that's made it more attractive. But who's the ideal client for a cash balance plan? It's really generally small to medium-sized businesses that are looking for big tax deductions. If you have a 401k plan, you can contribute up to $69,000 this year into the 401k. If you're over 50, you could do $76,500. So if that's with it what you want to put away, that's the type of plan you should have because it's the most flexible. But a cash balance plan allows you to go way beyond that limit. If you're a 50-year-old, you could put away $200,000 a year.
Right.
If you're 60 years old, you could put away $300,000 a year and tax deduct it. So, a typical client might be someone who has spent the last 20, 30 years building their business. Like me, I'm reinvesting into my business all the time.
Right.
You're paying down your mortgage, you got the kids' college paid off, and now you're sitting back and you're saying, I've got a narrow window of maybe 10 years.
That's right.
To accumulate money. And how am I going to do that? I can't do that in a 401k, not enough. So really I need to put away, the bigger amount, and that's where the cash balance plans come in. For 401k plans, the big opportunity right now is really in the startup market. The government is really pushing plan companies to sponsor retirement plans. And the Secure 2.0 gave some great tax credits. For instance, if you start up a plan and you have under 100 employees and at least one non-owner employee, you can get tax credits that'll cover the administrative costs for the first 3 years of running the plan. On top of that, if you're making a match, you can get a tax credit of $1,000 for each employee that earns less than $100,000. So if you got 50 employees, you got $50,000.
Right.
It's free money.
Yeah, that's right.
Why wouldn't you take advantage of that? And plus, it allows you to put away large amount of money into the 401k. So there's definitely a lot of opportunity out there. The government really wants companies to sponsor plans, and they're really pushing for it.
Yeah. What general advice would you give to a client who wants to open up a cash balance retirement plan, and specifically talk about the pitfalls and opportunities?
Well, let's start with the pitfalls. You have to remember a cash balance plan is a defined benefit plan, just like our parents and grandparents had growing up, right? You're defining what someone's going to have at retirement. It's a promise to pay a future benefit. So if your earnings in your business are not consistent, every year I get a call from an attorney. I just had a windfall settlement where I made $1 million.
Right.
Great. What was your income last year? 200,000. What was the year before? 200,000. Well, you can't afford to put away 200,000 and commit to that each year,
right?
Because your income is probably going to go back to what its norm was.
Right.
So you have to have consistent earnings and predictive earnings with this type of plan, because you can't change the contribution every year. 401ks, those are defined contribution plans. You're defining what's going in. A cash balance is a defined benefit plan. You're defining what the end result is. How you get there is a mix of your contributions and your earnings. So you're promising that benefit. You have to do that regardless if your company is making money or not. So again, you have to be predictive. The other pitfall is change in demographics.
Right.
If I might have a 3-person group and the 2 owners and a receptionist, and the receptionist is 25 years old. Looks great on paper, but if next year you replace that 25-year-old with a 60-year-old, the cost of the plan completely changes, because these are age-based plans. The older you are, the more money you make, the bigger the contribution. So replacing a 25-year-old with a 60-year-old can make a big difference in what the cost of the plan is. The other thing that people forget about is the growth of the company. If I'm going from 5 employees to 20 employees, the cost of those employees is going to quadruple.
That's right.
So, those are the things that I think most companies have to watch out for, is the change in demographics and change of income that can kind of trap them into something that they may not want long term. The benefits of a cash balance plan really comes down to what we said before. The tax benefits are terrific.
That's right.
But it kind of goes beyond that. If you think about a 401k plan, if I make a 401k contribution as a business owner, I have to pay Social Security tax first.
Right.
And as a business owner, I have to pay as the employer. So now I'm paying twice the Social Security on that 401k contribution. When I make a cash balance contribution, that's a top line deduction. That's a business expense. There's no Social Security tax due on that when it goes in. So it's got some different tax benefits versus a 401k deduction. The other thing is cash balance plans are easier to understand. My daughter, Sienna,
Yeah, of course.
she became a teacher this year, and she got a pamphlet from her school district saying you're going to get a pension. It's 1% of your accrued salary times years of working with you, and you'll collect it at age 65. Well, she has no idea what they're putting in for her. It could be $500, it could be $5,000. She doesn't appreciate it because it's not real money. With a cash balance plan, you're telling the employee, I'm putting in 10% of your pay.
Right.
Pretty easy for them to understand, pretty easy for them to appreciate it. So the benefit is appreciated more. You get better retention of employees because of that. There's also no runaway cost with a cash balance plan. If policemen or firemen that have pension plans, they tend to work a lot of overtime their last 3 years.
Right.
Because
they're maxing out the calculation at the end. That's right.
The traditional defined benefit, the old type of defined benefit, was based on your 3-year average compensation. So if you got a big high 3-year on those last 3 years, all of a sudden your pension benefit can go up quite a bit. With a cash balance plan, it's based on what your income is. So it's 10% of your pay. We don't go back and redo your pay for the past 30 years like you would with a traditional defined benefit plan. So you don't have those runaway costs that were always the big thing that companies feared with with traditional defined benefit plans.
Can I have you speak to this? Like over the years, you and I have had plans where there was high turnover or there were
Mhm.
part-time employees. Can you speak to how that'll affect the funding and requirements of the plan?
Yeah. So one thing to always keep in mind is we can eliminate certain employees from the calculation. We can eliminate people who are considered part-time employees, and that's anyone who works less than 1,000 hours during the course of the year. It's generally about 20 hours a week. So they can be eliminated. People that haven't been with the company long-term can be eliminated or initially. So you can put a 1-year wait before they become eligible, and then you can have a semi-annual entry date in the plan.
Right.
So if I was hired February of 24, I have to wait till February 25 to get my 1 year, and I wouldn't even enter the plan until July of 25 before I become eligible. So there's a real long waiting period before people can actually become eligible. You can eliminate people who are union employees, 1099, non-resident aliens. And then on top of that, you're going to throw a vesting schedule on this so that if an employee does leave, they may not be entitled to the contribution that you put in for them. You can put a 3-year vesting schedule on the plan. So if I leave after 2 years or even 2.5, I don't get what the company's put in for me. I have to stay a full 3 years. So it's a good way to retain people.
Absolutely. Let's talk now about the proper use of life insurance inside a retirement plan. And I'm specifically talking about where a business owner might have a need for life insurance and they want to purchase it inside the plan. Can you kind of walk us through when they should do that and how they should plan on unraveling it at the end or swapping it out?
Sure. I think one of the questions that always comes up when I'm meeting with business owners and we start talking about life insurance is, why is it even allowed? Right? Like, isn't it kind of weird? You know, you have all these different investments, and all of
Right.
a sudden they said, "Oh, you can buy life insurance." Like, why would life insurance? So it kind of goes back to the old days when men worked, women stayed home and raised the children and took care of the house. Well, if that man died, you know, in year 1 or 2, and that spouse was dependent on him or her for a pension, well, that disappeared,
Right.
right? So the government said, why don't we allow life insurance and pension plans so it self-completes the plan?
Right.
If that person dies, at least the beneficiary is going to get, you know, X amount of dollars to help them in the future. So that's kind of the background on why life insurance even allowed. There are what they call incidental death benefit rules when it comes to retirement plans. And it says you're allowed life insurance, but it's got to be incidental to the primary purpose, which is to provide retirement benefits.
Right.
So in general, you're allowed to buy up to 50% of the contribution towards the purchase of a whole life policy, 25% towards a universal life policy. Profit sharing plans have a kind of a unique aspect to it called an aged money provision that says money that's been in the plan for more than 2 years can be used entirely. All rollover money can also be used entirely. So if I've got $1 million sitting in an IRA, I could roll that into my profit sharing plan and I could use 100% of that or $1 million toward the purchase of life insurance. Okay, so, you know, why would someone do that? Why would someone buy life insurance in a plan? Or what are some of the reasons that people buy it? The first reason goes back to the original income replacement, right?
Right.
You know, if I've got a spouse that's dependent on me, I have an insurance need. I can buy my insurance through my profit sharing plan. I know I have the money there, so it's an easy source, and I've got a tax subsidized dollar,
Right.
right? You know, if I'm in a 30 or 40% tax bracket, instead of paying $1,000 for that premium, I'm really paying $700 because the government's subsidizing the rest of my premium. And then probably the biggest sales we see in the qualified plan market is really for estate liquidity. You know, I've sat down with a lot of business owners over the years. They're over the estate tax, federal tax rate. And the first thing I'll ask them is this money in this retirement plan money you're going to live on, or is it going to be passed on?
Right.
And a lot of them say, you know, I don't need it to live on. I've got other things to live on. So I really want to plan on passing that on to my kids. Well, you used to have a stretch IRA where you could give it to the kids and they could stretch it out over their lifetime and defer the taxation for a long period. Now those kids have to take it out or in a 10-year period. So the tax on that, you have estate tax plus income tax, you're looking at about a 75 to 80% dilution of that asset. So, hey, Mr. Business Owner, you don't have $1 million in that profit sharing plan. You really got, 250,000.
That's right.
So why don't we turn it back into $1 million by using it to buy life insurance? Life insurance is the only asset in a plan that can pass income tax free upon death, regardless of your age. I know Roths can pass after 59 and a half. Life insurance can pass at any age, income tax free, the death benefit to your heirs. And if you set it up in the right way, where you have an irrevocable life insurance trust, purchase the policy, you can remove it from your estate as well. Which kind of brings me to what your second question was: how do you get it out of the plan, right?
Right.
So you have a couple of options. You could surrender the policy, and if we have a high cash value policy, that's okay. The cash stays in the plan, and you use it just like any other investment you had. You can distribute the policy to yourself. You'll pay income tax on the cash value, or you could purchase the policy from the plan. And we're going to purchase it for what we call the fair market value, which is generally around the cash surrender value of a policy. So there's different ways to get the policy out, but ideally you want to also think about the long term, if it's an estate, to have an irrevocable life insurance trust buy that policy.
And just one little thing I'd add, on a personal basis, my cash balance plan, which you've helped me set up, I've got life insurance in there. My father had life insurance in his plan, and it was tremendously beneficial for my mom. So, I really believe in doing it when it makes sense. Obviously, there's got to be a need, and
right.
A lot of those factors we discussed. But what I like about it is you're self-completing that pension. God forbid you were to die sooner than you thought you were going to die. Which, by the way, is how everybody dies, just as an aside. What upcoming changes and opportunities do you see on the horizon for retirement planning in general?
So it all goes back, a lot of it goes back to what I was saying, that government is really forcing employers to sponsor plans. A lot of states, I think there's 14 of them now have mandatory 401k plans. New York being one of them, where I am. If you have over 10 employees in New York, you either have to sponsor a 401k or you have to join the state plan, which is not a very good plan. It's basically nothing more than a Roth IRA. And now you have to tell your employees it's automatic enrollment unless you elect out. So now you've got employees that may not be happy with you because you're forcing them into something that isn't all that great, quite honestly. That's one thing to keep in mind, that the expansion of these mandatory mandates from the government to have plans, they haven't done it on a federal level yet, and I think a lot of the states are trying to implement it before the federal government so they can control it.
Right.
But you're probably going to see it on the federal level at some point. You're seeing the expansion of auto enrollment. Okay, auto enrollments where everyone is put into the plan upon meeting eligibility. Regardless if they elected in or not. Now they have to elect out of auto enrollment to not be in the plan. So again, they're trying to force a lot more people to save. And then the reason was they know Social Security is in not a great shape. Social Security is planning on running out, not in the near distant future. So another trend I'm seeing is the growth of ESG investing, especially with the nonprofit organizations.
Right.
That's become a very big topic. One of my biggest 401k plans is a nonprofit group here in New York. If it was up to them, they would have nothing but ESG funds.
Right.
So I would temper their expectation on that. But ESG has become very, very big. Roth features, much more broadly adopted today than what you saw even 5 years ago. The Secure Act, just so you know, the Secure Act has changed how highly compensated employees can make catch-up contributions starting next year. It was supposed to go into effect this year. It's going in next year. If you're a highly compensated individual, you're not going to be able to do a pre-tax catch-up anymore. It has to be a Roth. So the government wants their money sooner than later, and,
Right.
and that's what the Roth is. Now, in the long run, it's not a bad deal, but usually the highly compensated are the ones that want the pre-tax.
What makes you stand out from your competition and specifically other TPAs?
The biggest trend I've seen in the TPA business is tons of consolidation going on. A lot of small groups like us are getting gobbled up by private equity firms.
Yeah.
And I think I've said this to you before. I think private equity is really destroying a lot of good businesses out there, because what they do is they bring on these companies, they roll them up, they increase fees, they decrease the service, and they let go of a lot of high paid people to do that, which are the most experienced people. And I just took over a client from one of those companies that got rolled up, and they said, I used to be able to call someone and talk to them and ask them questions, and they'd give me direct answers. Now I have to send an email to a general mailbox that in a few days someone will get back to me, and it may or may not be the right answer, which means I now have to send another question, which is going to take 3 days to get back to. So, we live in this world where customer service is non-existent.
Right.
So I always, going back to why I got into this business was customer service. And I think that's still what kind of differentiates us. I've had so many clients call me and say, hey, I wasn't expecting you to pick up your phone. The expectation of clients is so low today.
I know. It's actually sad, isn't it?
It is. It really is. And, I get frustrated when I deal with some of the big companies trying to get information.
Sure.
So I don't want to put my clients through that. And I think the other thing is, the experience of our staff. Our administrators are over 25 years of experience, and nothing beats experience. They've sat through IRS audits, they've sat through DOL audits, they've gone through all these restatements of plan documents over the past 20 years that we have to do every 6 years. So, it's great knowing that the person you're talking to isn't someone just right out of college that may or may not be giving you the right answer. So I think that, the combination of service and experience is really what differentiates us.
That always makes me crazy when you go through the process of having your staff or you're calling directly and you get an answer and it's the wrong answer, and you got to call back and hope you get someone else who actually knows what they're doing. It's a real frustration.
I mean, when I deal with life insurance companies now, I'll call the customer service place 3 times, and I'll go with the one that gives me the answer at least 2 out of 3, because I know.
Right, there's a trend, right? That's right.
I know one's wrong, but if 2 of them give me the same answer, I'm going to go with that answer.
I love it.
It's terrible.
I love it. Well, what a fun conversation today. Just got a couple final questions. What do you see yourself doing in retirement? What is Scott Mady going to do when he hangs it up?
Well, I plan on hanging in Dublin with my boy Bob Burke.
Done. Let's go.
Throwing back a few pints.
I love it.
I think the thing I've learned most being in this business is no matter how much money you think you need more.
Right.
You always have to plan for the unexpected. So, if you think you need 500,000, save 550. You think you need 3 million, save 3.5 million.
Right.
You always need more than you think you're going to need. And just think about the last generation. My dad's 99 now.
Yeah.
His life expectancy is way past what his parents were in the year before that. We're going to be living longer. So that's something to take consideration. But, my goals for retirement is to be, I'm a family guy. I want to be close to my girls, and hopefully one day when they give me grandkids, be there to coach their soccer and basketball. But that's really my goal, is to be close to them and, to travel. I know you travel a lot. I love traveling.
Yeah, it's great.
So, stay close to my friends from college and high school. So
love it. Well, thank you, Scott. That was a wonderful conversation. I think our audience got a lot out of it today. So until next time, this is Bobby Burke for the Multi-Millionaire Mindset Podcast.